Good evening, board members. Let's call our meeting to order. Today is Thursday, May 26, 2022, and this is the Oakville Public Library regular board meeting. Welcome to my colleagues on the board, as well as to members of the public who may be watching to monitor the transaction of business on behalf of the Oakville Public Library system. Before we get started this evening, I'd like to read our land acknowledgement. The Oakville Public Library is situated on the Treaty 14 and Treaty 22 treaty lands and the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat and the Haudenosaunee. Oakville is currently home to many different First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Regardless of where we come from, we are all interconnected through the land that we live on, water we use, and the air that we breathe. We are committed to a continuous learning journey and allyship. We seek to elevate Indigenous voices and lived experience to cultivate reconciliation in Oakville. Miigwech. Madam Committee Clerk, do we have any regrets this evening?
We have regrets from Pankage.
Thank you. It looks like everybody else appears to be here, which is great. We have declarations of pecuniary interest on the agenda next. Do I have any from my friends there in TV land? Don't see any, so we'll move on. Confirmation of minutes is the next matter of business, 3.1. That's from our meeting held on April 28th, 2022. Does anybody have any objections to moving these? And if not, then I need a mover and seconder, please. Don't all jump at once. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Councillor Hazathiel. Any comments, questions, errors, or omissions? Not seeing any, I will call the question. All in favor of the approval of the minutes? And that is carried. We have two consent items on our agenda tonight, 4.1 and 4.2. 4.1 is the Oakville Public Library Board Key Agenda Items Report as of today, and 4.2 is a health and safety report also as of today. Does anybody wish to separate either of these items, or are we satisfied to approve the staff recommendations, which in both cases is receipt? I'm not seeing any separations. Can I get a motion to receive 4.1 and 4.2, please? Susan and Stephen, thank you. Last call for questions, comments? See none, all in favor of the receipt of these two items, please. Thank you, that is carried. We do not have any confidential consent items, but we do have discussion items, and we start with item 6.1, the comprehensive financial report as at March 31st, 2022. The recommendation is receipt, and do we have a report on this presentation, or are we simply just open for questions?
Beyond the key facts, I'm happy to just take questions.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on this report this evening? I do not see any questions this evening. Would somebody like to give me a motion to receive the comprehensive financial report as of March 31st? Thank you, Susan. Seconded by? Thank you, Bill. Last chance for comments or questions. All in favor? The item is received. Thank you. 6.2 is performance and measures report, Q1 2022. Madam CEO, any comments on this?
Other than it continues to be a challenge to present statistics just based over the last couple of years, how to compare over the last couple of years. So we're happy to answer any questions that the board may have if any of that is confusing.
I see one question. Janet, do you have a question?
Can you hear me? I've got technology issues.
We can hear you.
Okay, good.
Are you in a sugar coma by any chance right now?
Wow, like 3 bites of that thing, man, and you really it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Just to
go
look
to
at everybody, we were
Cinnaholic.
both out at the opening of a new shop in downtown Oakville called Cinnaholic, and Janet and I both enjoyed the cinnamon buns.
Oh, lots of toppings with lots of sugar.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, did you consider doing a comparator using 2019? Am I on the wrong report?
No, you're on the right report. I mean, we could pull it back. We've always traditionally done it this way, and so we're looking to kind of do it. Is that what you'd be looking for next time, is for us to do a 3-year comparison versus a year-over-year comparison, which we've traditionally done? Or
It's just the year over year doesn't seem to work because we had so many opens and closures.
Okay.
We had some services, not so services.
Yes.
So as I was reading it, I went, like, I'm pleased to see like the 2022 number, but I'm thinking really a benchmark for us might be 2019, which is pre-COVID. How are we comparing? Are we back on track in terms of, you know, circulations, all of those pieces? So it's just a suggestion. I just, because I imagine you pulled your hair out looking at it going, well, what does this really mean? And how does that all come together? And it's a lot of work for you guys. But to me, the most meaningful would be, so we're coming through COVID. Where are we at compared to pre-COVID?
No, for sure, we can do that, and we do pull those numbers occasionally just for information that for our decision making, and I can tell you just offhand that we're still at about 45, I say probably 45 to 50% of footfall compared to 2019. That's slowly coming back, so we're excited to see that. I was at Glen Abbey on Thursday, and it was hopping, and that was really lovely to see, and just talking with some of the people who were there, that this is their first time back after COVID. Circulation's actually doing much better. It's closer to 85% of pre-COVID, but we will definitely bring a report as part of the Q2 that just provides that where we were in 2019 versus today and how that recovery is happening.
Thank you very much.
I would agree with that observation that it'd be good to get the 2019 benchmark. So I would suggest that the motion be receipt of the Q1 2022 report and that a further report with benchmark 2019 be circulated at the next meeting.
Okay.
Jessica, do you have that?
Do you want that to be part of the motion or just staff direction?
Could you put it in the motion, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
Let me just get the wording again.
So basically the motion that's there, and that the report be redrafted with 2019 as a benchmark and circulated at the next board meeting. Thank you. Janet, would you mind moving that for me?
Yep.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Can I get a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Susan. Are there any questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 6.3, disconnecting from work procedure.
So the board's probably heard about this policy procedure in the news. It's been in the news for the last number of months. It is a requirement as part of Bill 27. The library is following the town's practice of adding a disconnecting from work procedure to our time at and away from work policy. So we followed the exact same guidelines as the town, and I'm happy to take questions on the procedure that's included.
Thank you. It's going to be fascinating to watch how people implement this over the next months and
Yes.
years to come. It's a challenging piece of legislation. Questions or comments on this particular new policy? This mirrors exactly the town's policy.
Yes.
That's what I read as well. Yeah, I thought so. I don't see any questions or comments. Can I get a motion to, are we receiving this for information or are we approving this policy?
It is a procedure, so it's received for information.
Right, okay. Can I get a motion to receive, please? Thank you, Andrew. Seconded by Bill. Comments, questions? See none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, 6.4, 2022 CEO goals, Q2 update.
So just as indicated, every quarter I will bring updates on the annual CEO goals. They are in there. One thing I did want to discuss briefly was just the budget goal. You will note that originally the goal was that OPL and Town Finance will undergo a zero-based budget exercise to ensure spending is current, accurate, and appropriately aligned into the strategic goals. We are undergoing that process. However, as mentioned in the report, we've tweaked it a little bit because in order to do a true zero-based budget, you actually do like time studies and really look at where your resources, and as we're recovering from the pandemic, it's just not accurate. We are using some 2019 data as appropriate. So we are, I guess, doing half of it. But more importantly, as part of this, we are realigning a lot of our business units and redefining our object codes. That way, actually, when we actually go to do this, as I recommend that we do likely in 2025, that it's actually much better. Because what we've discovered as we've gone through this process is that not all the business units align to really tell us how much it costs to run that unit. So for example, we discovered that there is a digital content service that is actually being paid for out of my CEO business unit, which isn't appropriate, but apparently that's been how it's been done historically, so that's just continued. So we are going through all the different business units and going through what's being charged to each object code and cleaning that up. So over the next couple of years, we'll be able to gather data about what it actually costs to run these different divisions. We're also cleaning it up. The collections department, I think, has 4 business units, which again makes it really challenging. So we're actually cleaning that up and minimizing those as much as possible. So this process will be very much worthwhile, and I think really set the stage for us to do a full zero-based budget in a couple of years after North Park comes online.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on that? Boy, quiet crowd tonight. Can I give them, oh, Janet, thank you.
The only question I have on the goals is a little bit on the talent management components. So I'm looking through to see if I can recall the page.
It's 45 is where it says the staff engagement piece.
Right, okay. So I'm noting when I looked at the financials that the turnover is obviously benefiting the budget right now until we pay the fees to hire people if we have to go out and pay people to do that.
Yep.
But I'm not sure what the comfort level is with yourself and the rest of the board, but I'm wondering, is there an opportunity to have a sort of a look at the organizational impacts that are occurring from a turnover perspective, or when you at least present the talent management saying, here's potential returns, here's potential, here's the risk analysis, here's the pathway to the next levels for these individuals. Like, I'm not sure how you're going to scope it out and frame it out. I've seen organizations do it in multiple ways, but it clearly is a challenge that it will impact the stability of the organization. And I think a closer look at it for the board is in my opinion, worthwhile.
No, absolutely. When we bring the talent strategy forward, we can actually provide that information. Actually, I was going to speak about this a little bit as part of my CEO update. Last week, I was in Edmonton. The Canadian Urban Library Council met again in person, which was very, very exciting. And talent management was actually one of our key topics because it is a challenge for all of us right now. We blame Toronto Public Library because they've recruiting over 100 staff right now, and they're basically stripping us all. Which is a challenge. And it provides excellent opportunity because they're so big. And then also, I did want to mention, because we're very proud of this, but our manager of collections operations left us to become the CEO of Oxford County. So we're very, very pleased that she developed it in a way that she felt ready for that role. We're very excited to build that connection. But it does provide challenges for us, particularly when we have people who are looking for those next challenges. We're a smaller organization, so sometimes they do have to go exterior to do that. But we definitely take your comments to heart and understand that what else we can do in order to try and keep people and continue to build internal capacity. We've also had a lot of internal movement, and that's been really amazing. With that, we've just filled the manager position internally. So again, that just creates, that bottom, that flow, and that's actually what contributes a lot to our current surplus is actually internal movement. But I'm happy to bring that as part of it for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments or questions? I just have one. With respect to your anti-racism training, you were saying you recommend the Sheridan Micro-Credential Program. Could you maybe just talk a little bit about that program that you took and
sure.
What the value was?
Joe and I both took it.
Okay.
And it was astonishing. It was 16 weeks. It was three different modules. It is hosted by Sheridan in combination with the Halton Equity and Diversity Roundtable. So they helped develop it. We are the second cohort to go through it. The first was kind of a test cohort. There was about 26 individuals who were in it from all over Halton, some into Hamilton, from across all corporations. There was a lot of nonprofit, but there was also some business really interested in this topic. And it was such a safe space. The teacher was amazing and bringing out conversations. It was a good mix of information of really hard topics with group work that really enabled us to have some conversations. People shared some of their personal experiences. I think that really drove home what we were reading. So overall, I said I took the CCDI. That was a 4-course, but it was more of a webinar, right? Like they talk at you. It was very educational. You definitely didn't get the connection that you did through the Sheridan course. As well, the last course was building equity and leadership, and we left with a lot of the end was like, what can we do in our organization? What can we do through our vote and with our politicians to try to encourage change, both within our organization but also within society as a whole? It was really, I feel this word is sometimes overused, but it was powerful.
And did you take away lessons that you can apply to your work on a daily basis, do you feel?
Oh, absolutely. It comes up a lot.
Investment of your time.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. But maybe circulate the link to the program for
No,
board
absolutely.
members in case anybody else is interested in
Yeah.
participating
I
in
would
that program.
I would strongly recommend it. We'll put more staff through it the next time it comes up for sure.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
Thank you. Janet.
Tara, that's wonderful to hear. Is Commissioner Bell going to share that with the town staff and in terms of an opportunity? Or shared that with her to say,
I have
to do this?
mentioned to her how much I enjoyed it. I haven't necessarily passed it on. Marcus Logan sits on the Halton Equity Diversity Roundtable, which is how it came to us. But I can definitely have that conversation with Colleen. I have mentioned it to Julie Mitchell and a couple others that I speak to regularly and recommending it to them. I would say that one of the challenges would be that one of the benefits of that program is the diversity of the cohort. So I would hate to see, and it wouldn't really work for the town to try and get and do one individually, right? Some of the benefit is just sending 1 or 2 people at a time and really engaging with the broader community. So I think that's sometimes a bit of a challenge, but I definitely think it's worthwhile. And it may just be that, as they do different cohorts, that we just send a couple people every time.
Exactly. And I'm not a big fan of sort of a all one organization in a room. It's really that's not the purpose. But if you can, you've obviously taken some things away from it. If you can champion that to the folks, because we have, as you know, a road ahead of us.
Yes.
And more people who can be leaders in that round would be beneficial.
Agreed.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to receive this report, please? Thank you, Janet. Seconded by. Thanks, Bill. Further comments or questions? All in favor of receipt? That is carried. Thank you. Let's move on to our CEO update, the highlight of every board meeting, the CEO update.
I think this is the fun one too. Before I actually get to the PowerPoint, I did just want to speak briefly to the section on the provincial election, just to let you know that I have met with the Green candidate, Bruno Souza, as well as the Liberal candidate, Alison Goal, today actually, and both conversations went really, really well. Both were really engaged in libraries, and irregardless of the result of the election, I feel that they definitely will continue to support us. And some of the conversations that we have, they've said that they'll continue to take those forward in their communities. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you.
That they went really well. So just some updates. So there isn't a large update for North Park. Things are continuing to progress there. None of these details are different from what you saw in April. You will see likely an update in June. I can't remember whether or not council is before or after our board meeting. It's generally before, in which case we'll provide information on the report that's going to council in terms of the increased costs that we're seeing related to supply chain, construction costs, gas costs, everything costs related to that. But design continues, but the design remains almost exactly the same. We've been spending quite a few weeks with the architect working on things like the design of our information desks and those types of pieces. 16-mile relocation. This has been a fast-moving, it's been a slow-moving, fast-moving, slow-moving kind of piece to it. I did send the board an update. So the 16-mile branch will close end of day June 4th. That's Saturday, June 4th. It will be, we'll reopen a pop-up location in the sports complex, the lower level, on June 7th. So there is a relatively short gap there. Communication will start to go out today, tomorrow. I did send our communication package to the two counselors that they had requested so that we can all kind of be all the same page in terms of the communication that's going out. 16-mile branch is expected to reopen in early September. I'll provide updates as we go. That is the optimistic date, but we're really hopeful to open, if not before school, then shortly after school goes back in. The good news story is that the updated costing estimate for the move is roughly $800,000. Now that dollar amount is specifically for the contractor to move the branch. So there are some additional costs, the moving costs for the books, the storage, some of the technology that we purchased to expand the OPL Express. However, those will probably total between $100,000 and $150,000. So it is well under the budget that was approved last year, which was $2.2 million, when at that point we weren't sure where the branch was going and thought we may have to purchase land. So the good news is that it looks like it's going to come in under $1 million to move the branch. So we were pretty pleased with that, particularly given the circumstances that we found ourselves in a couple weeks ago with no bidders on that project. So again, I meant to give this slide last month, but I forgot to put it in there, so I figured I'd include it. We'll use it on our website, just a visual of where the branch currently is and where it's going. There was a moment a couple weeks ago where we were literally contemplating whether or not we could run one of those fundraisers, where you pull the airplane, where they could just lift the different portables and carry them up a kilometer. However, Colleen wasn't as big a fan as I was on that. But Glen Abbey exterior renovation. So this is really, really exciting. This will be opening in June. The majority of work is completed. We are still encountering some supply chain impact. We have chairs, but we don't have tables. But we don't necessarily think that they're absolutely necessary for us to start opening that space, as well as the transformer. Again, we're going to open without it. We're going into summer. Having the lighting out there isn't necessary until we start to go into fall, and we're expecting that later in the summer. We're just waiting for the security cameras to be installed, and then we'll pretty much be ready to go. So this is what it was looking like on Thursday, which was a beautiful day. If we had opened that door, I guarantee it would have been full. You can kind of see we do have smaller child tables and chairs out there. We're missing the adult ones. We've got some stools. The benches are all there. The planters. We're meeting with Parks tomorrow to talk about how we're going to support that space moving forward. But more information will come. We're going to do a soft launch, and then we'll do an official launch probably later in June, early in July. I'll have to consult with Simona about the exact date. But so more information to come on that. But we're really excited. It's a really lovely space. And I know the public is definitely going to love it. So yeah, the benches. As I mentioned a little while ago, I was in Edmonton last week for the Canadian Urban Library Council, which, just as a reminder, is a body that consists of all urban libraries, so municipalities over 100,000 across Canada. So there's 50 representatives, 35 of which were in person in Edmonton. So it was lovely to gather and commiserate and talk together. We meet twice a year, but over the past 2 years, obviously, it's been virtual. Some of the key topics that were discussed was intellectual freedom challenges and growing polarization. To date, we've been, I don't know whether to call us lucky, but to not necessarily have any significant challenges. That has not been the case for larger systems like Toronto, Halifax, Edmonton, and Vancouver, who have seen major cases, news picked up in the US, Tucker Carlson involved. Some of these are still resulting in ongoing litigation. So it was a really good conversation. There was a lot of lessons that have been learned. One of the lessons being that libraries who have yet to encounter this need to start being proactive about educating about intellectual freedom. So we are talking about how we will do that. As part of that, I'll also be probably bringing some reports more around just information forward to the board or as we go through the year, because definitely if we get challenges, the board will be significantly involved in some of that decision making. Human resources trends, as I talked about, talent management, challenges with just recruiting have been an issue across Canada. And so we had numerous conversations about how we can better manage that, what resources do we need as individual organizations, but also as an industry, how we can potentially do better at preparing staff to step in to leadership roles, because that's what we're finding is there's been so much movement that we've hit a point where we actually, now there's nobody to move into some of those roles, and we're having to do different types of education and onboarding. So those are really interesting conversations. And again, in the GTA, we all just keep stealing each other's people, which is another challenge. Copyright impacts. This is another one I'm going to bring forward probably in the next couple months, maybe into the fall, a report just going over the current status of controlled digital lending in Canada. So what I mean by controlled digital lending is where Hamilton, for example, partners with the Internet Archive, however you feel about the Internet Archive, and they digitize books and put it in the archive. So they concentrate on older books that may be out of print. And so the idea being that they digitize the book, the physical book goes into storage, and the digitized copy then goes in the Internet Archive. This is a copyright gray area. Canada and the US have very different regulations on this. There is a group of public librarians as well as academic librarians working on a white paper and recommendations on how public libraries can move forward with this. And a lot of this is simply around almost all new books are being digitized, but we're weeding books out of our collection that aren't digitized, and the publisher has no intent to publicize it. This book could potentially be lost. So what can we do to try and keep those available, particularly for research? This is more on the nonfiction side. Fiction side, I think, probably get a little bit more sketchy. But this is something that's developing. Hamilton's been very much involved. They have legal opinions. Vancouver's starting. Milton's a little bit. But these are conversations that we're having. Toronto is also looking at what they'll look at. Most of us are looking to start with our local history collections and really digitizing some of those, starting with the older works. Anything before 1920 isn't really an issue. Copyright is about to be extended, so that gives us some room. But the question does become, what is the future of controlled digital lending in Canada? So more information will be coming to the board, just informational, because that is something that the library will need to take a look at, likely in the next couple of years. And then Leslie Weir, the national librarian, was there just giving an update from Library and Archives Canada, who we actually advocated for quite strongly that we really need Library and Archives Canada to start taking a role in controlled digital lending, because it's ridiculous if we're digitizing a book, Hamilton's digitizing that same book, Edmonton's digitizing that same book. How can we do better at really creating a national repository? So she agreed and has gone back to have some conversations with her people. And hopefully we'll have more conversations in the fall when we meet again in Toronto. Now I have a bunch of really fun photos for you because I couldn't not put them in, but it was hosted in downtown Edmonton at Edmonton Public Library's newly renovated Central Branch. They reopened, I think, in 2020. So definitely a rocky time for them to reopen. You may have seen, it was in the news because somebody took a really unflattering photo of the exterior of it, and it was national news because from one angle it does look like a giant tank, but there in person it doesn't. So it's interesting. It definitely shows you the power of a single photo and angle. But I just wanted to show you because it's so exciting and provides ideas for what possibly could be when we eventually look at a new central library. They have a 2-story digital wall. It is interactive. The bottom panels, you can touch them. As dinosaurs and vegetation run by, you can touch and it gives you information. You can play games on it. It's a really impressive thing. It's also very expensive. I think it cost them $10 million just for the digital wall. But I covet their digital wall. This is the entrance to their children's area. They did it with a local artist who worked with local children. Simona's going to take some of these back to the architect for North Park and see, how can we incorporate art and a bit more interesting wall features into some of our branches. Although they did make a note that some of those cubbies, they maybe should be a little bit smaller because a couple kids can actually get in there with that. And we would never do a fish tank. Good on them for doing a fish tank, but I would never advocate for a fish tank.
That's a fish tank, not critters?
No, it is. It's a fish tank.
Okay.
Yeah. And then these are all in their children's space, so a lot of tactile wall toys. And then they have this beautiful kind of like space that's inside but mimics outside with the runners. And they have a big piano, which I think is actually more of a hit with the adults than it is with the kids. When we were there, it was all adults on it, and the kids were just like, give us a turn.
I'd play on that. I'd go on that.
Oh, I was on it.
Oh, were you? Okay.
Oh, for sure. It was a lot of fun. So that's just some pictures of what I thought was really cool about Edmonton. I have some other ones that they also have, interestingly enough, they have a culinary kitchen as well. That's probably the size of Woodside. It's significant, and they said it's probably their most popular thing. They do programs like knife skills. So we did ask about their liability insurance. But they really focus on not so much on recipes, but teaching people how to open their fridge and cook with what they have, which we thought was really, really impressive. And I only mention it because I actually just took a tour of Mississauga Public Library's Central Library, which is currently under renovation. It's completely gutted, but they are putting a culinary kitchen in there too. So they're calling it culinary literacy, and it seems to be sweeping the nation. So it'll be interesting. There is one at QEP, and we are having conversations. We've done partnerships with them before, but what else potentially we could do?
Having more of those in the community really actually it's quite a big benefit to food security.
Yes.
Because it allows people that may have financial challenges to be able to make better, more nutritious meals for less. So it's a terrific opportunity to really expand that social reach that we have.
No, exactly. And when we were there, the kitchen coordinator, because they have a whole department that's responsible for the kitchen, was in prepping for her next class, which was basically 6 different ways to use cabbage, which I thought was really, really interesting. I think speaks to the economic times that we're in, and anybody who's gone to the grocery store lately is fully aware. In the report, I do speak to our book bike initiative in partnership with the Bronte BIA. So this is what we ordered and a mock-up of what it's going to look like. We are expecting that to arrive in the next couple weeks, so we're hoping that the program will be in place by the end of the month. So if it is, I will provide photos of it in its natural habitat for the June board meeting. And then just to give you pictures to go along with the update in the report, we have been reallocating staff space to public space where possible. The board will remember that we did ask for some money to renovate Woodside, and it got shifted back. It'll probably come forward again for 2023, but in the meantime, we looked at what are some low-cost things we can still continue to do. One of them was taking the talking book room, redistributing those talking books out throughout the entire organization. That way they were just at one location, and then reallocating it to study space. For those who are familiar with Woodside, they did have a quiet study room but I think it had one and a half cubicles in there. It was just a tiny little room. So now there's so much space, and the community's really excited to have more space in Woodside to be able to just come and sit and study or read as needed.
Is that on the main floor?
It is on the main floor, yeah. When you see that wall, when you're looking at the long one, that wall there, that is the lobby on the other side of that wall.
Oh, okay. Are you doing anything with the basement space? I know the Literary Council used to rent space down there. There's a big opening down there. Is that? Yeah, that was what we were asking for the money to be able to do more with that space. So okay. That'll come back, sneak peek, potentially as part of the 2023. We were talking about using that for creation space for potential. Yeah, well, even like studio space. Yeah. And actually, we're starting to talk a little bit with Rec and Culture to get a better understanding of what their virtual program will look like and whether or not we should look at a space where we collaborate rather than us each have a different space. And so we're starting to have those conversations. And so it may shift from Woodside to one of the rec centers. But the idea being that, as we figure out
what virtual programming looks like for both of us moving forward. How can we create a space that actually is properly equipped to support both of those types of pieces? And it was really interesting. Edmonton has a full audiovisual studio setup that I took some pictures of that we'll use forward, but some more information to come with Woodside. But irregardless, we do need to do a better job at Woodside downstairs for sure. And then my last slide is the councillors will know that two new board members were appointed at council last night. We can't release the names. Clerks will notify them over the next couple days, but they will welcome to the board at our June board meeting. So we will do board orientation with them in the next few weeks. If any of the other board members would like to participate in that, please let me know. And part of that orientation will include a tour of all branches, which I will put out an email to all board members in case they would like to join with that. So just to give you an update that I'll be sending out more information about that once that they've been notified, as well as what orientation looks like, and please feel free to join us for those pieces.
Could I just clarify with our committee clerk, we normally at council, we normally announce after they're appointed at the meeting. The mayor deferred it for the board to announce, so I'm wondering if we can announce those, because it was my intention to announce those tonight. Is there a reason we shouldn't be?
I have direction from the clerk that it's not to be announced until they're notified and accepted.
I'm not messing with Vicky, so we'll stick with that. Okay.
We have to make sure that they're notified and are still accepting.
Fair enough. Okay, that's fine.
Yep, so we'll provide updates as soon as we get confirmation of that. And that is my report. Happy to take any additional questions.
Thank you. Members of the board, questions for, thank you, Stephen.
Sorry, thank you for that. One comment off the top, then a question. I had the pleasure of meeting Tara in person the other day at the OCF meeting at Central Branch, and I met Marcus and Deborah. It was just great to see people again in person, and I thought the library put on a good show for OCF, and it's exactly that combination of communities coming together. And the land acknowledgement, I'm still thinking about it. I thought he was extraordinary.
Yeah.
So it was great to see you, Tara. My question is about the storm, and I'm hoping the answer is no. But from a branch perspective or network employees, was anybody hurt in the storm? Like, did the network lose any trees on properties, which I know is more of a town thing? But were the libraries themselves impacted at all by the storm on Saturday? And was anybody hurt?
No.
Okay.
Not that I know of, and Trish and I had a conversation earlier today, and she didn't let me know that anybody, there was any issues with any staff members, and none of the facilities received any damage, no.
Okay, well, and this is my little personal shout out to Jeff, who happens to be my local counselor. I lost a tree, and many people in this area did, and Jeff was extremely responsive, so I appreciate that. And if Colleen had been on here, I would thank her too, because town staff have been amazing to work with in terms of the trees. But I'm very happy to hear. I assume we would have heard, but I'm very, very pleased. Thank goodness no one was hurt.
Yeah, our park staff are the best there is, so for sure.
It's amazing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we owe a big debt of gratitude to the folks, both in Parks and Open Space, as well as Public Works as well. And we can't forget Oakville Hydro. Those folks worked nonstop for, I think they're still working, frankly, in recovery for this. So if you're listening, thank you. If you're not, hopefully, if you know somebody, pass on the board's thanks, because we really were able to recover quickly from that. Except my low voltage lighting in the backyard, which I have no idea where it's gone. It's flowing somewhere. Janet, you have a question?
Just a few comments and then a question. I love the letter that you wrote to on the provincial election, inviting them and hopefully encouraging them to have those conversations. So it was great to see those too. And I think the bike is a wonderful initiative, particularly for the location that it's going to be in. So let's hope that Friendly Finds is able to keep it well stocked. My question is around the strategic plan, and I wasn't sure whether to ask it here or earlier, but is there going to be any sort of more formal launch of the strategic plan, or have I just been, did I miss it?
No, you didn't miss it. And Joe and I have had multiple conversations about that. We really did hit a bump with the company that we hired to do a lot of the marketing pieces. We put our eggs all in one basket, and then they all came down with COVID. And so it's been a real struggle to get back on their agenda, because again, our project was winding down. They had new projects coming up. So things like the videos, we just got those finalized, and then we're just finally getting the graphics. So that is, you're going to see a bigger, it's not what we had hoped, but that should be coming out in the next week. The video launch, as well as all the collateral and the social posts, and all those pieces. So yes.
Okay, thank you for that. And part of it is, I might sound like a broken record, but the more that counselors can have their hands on that kind of
Yes.
materials, the more we will reach a broader part of the community. Some of us have a very deep database, and you know, I insert things just by grabbing it and kind of trying to make it work. But I think the strategic plan really speaks to people. I mean, I certainly am very proud of what the board created and what your team created. So I think it I mean, Stephen may have a more expertise in this area, but there's something to be said for saying this is go live, and this is what we're aspiring to, and we want you to come along on this journey with us.
Yeah, and so we're calling this like Launch 2.0. And as I put in the CEO goals, it will correspond with letters will go out tomorrow. I think in a total of 52 community partners, with the strategic booklet and a letter from me, some of them with some personal notes because there's a connection, with an offer to meet with me, and let's kind of get this out to our community partners, but also the social piece and the video, get that out and reconnect with the public and really start those conversations again. Because you're right, I met with the two candidates this morning, took the strategic plan. They were really engaged with it. They thought it was really exciting, particularly the mission and vision. So how can we, ramp that up again? Also, I wanted to just highlight that Joe, myself, and his team met earlier in the week to talk about creating a newsletter. Although I'm hesitant to call it a newsletter, more like an information email to go out to counselors, which is what's coming up, and some graphics to make it really easy for them to pop in their social or their newsletter, and kind of do that. So we are having conversations about drafting that and getting that out, which we're hoping to launch hopefully sooner rather than later. 16 Mile kind of threw us a little bit with the back and forth. So once we regroup from that, this is on the agenda.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janet. Anything further? Thank you, Bill.
Nothing
You're up
further from
next.
me.
Bill, you're up. Bill, you have the floor.
All right, I didn't miss. You're asking me? Okay. I guess it's my turn. Sorry.
No, it's the other.
I hope this isn't a stupid question, but I am retired. This 16-mile relocation project, I don't know if I missed this or... So there were no bidders, but there's an alternative option. What is it? I for the life of me, I can't remember if I've been told this.
Apologies. So what it was is that, it closed on June 3rd with no bidders. So we went back to purchasing to have a conversation. The Steinhoff, which is the company that we worked with to kind of draft the plans for moving it, costed out.
Not June 3rd.
Right.
You said June 3rd.
May 3rd.
May 3rd.
Sorry, I'm forward back in time. So we worked really closely with Steinhoff, and they actually consulted with a company in order to kind of create that. So that company was then disqualified from submitting a bid because they had been consulted. So because we did not have any bidders, purchasing said that we could then go back to that company and ask them if they would be interested. And they were. So that's how, and it actually is working out very, very nicely because they were part of the planning process. They helped guide our plans for how we were going to take it apart and how we were going to put it back together again. So that I think really enables them to hit the ground running, which is why we went from weren't sure we were going to be able to do it in June to having to close in June 5th. So, yeah. So
Okay,
it worked
that's
out.
great.
It was rocky for a
Okay.
second, but it did.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Anything further? Okay, can I get a motion to receive the CEO's update, please? Thank you, Janet. Seconded by Andrew. All in favor? You didn't? Andrew can't hear me. Andrew, do you have something to say?
I can't hear you what you're saying.
I was saying, I thought you were motioning to second or I thought you were raising your hand to
No,
second the motion.
No, I wasn't seconding anything because I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Can
so
you
I'll
start
take,
over?
so it was moved by Janet, seconded by? Bill, thank you very much. Any further comments or questions? All in favor? That's carried. Okay, we do not have any confidential discussion items. There is no new business this evening. I will draw to your attention that our next board meeting is on Thursday, the 23rd of June, 2022. And that is that says a virtual meeting. Is it, are we still in the virtual phase or are we able to return people to?
We have a meeting with the ITS department on June 8th to see how a test run goes.
Okay.
So we will keep you posted.
Okay, so stay tuned. We may be able to welcome you back to the council chambers. With that, members of the board, it's time to adjourn our meeting, so I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Stephen, thank you. Bill, thank you. All in favor? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much for your participation tonight. It's been great working with you. Thank you to the public and staff who've taken the time to log in and watch our live board meeting this evening. We hope you found it useful. Always feel free to send feedback. And with that, I'll say good night and we'll see you in June.